The ship slipped into the solar system like a shadow passing over a sleeping house. It was a smooth silver disk, without seams or engines that could be seen. It made no sound and left no heat trail. To the telescopes of Earth, it was nothing. A trick of the light, a bit of space dust. Inside, the being known as Eon watched the blue and white world grow larger on the main viewer. He was a luminary of the celestial hegemony, a species so old they had forgotten their own planet of origin. His form was tall and slender, wrapped in a simple gray robe that seemed to drink the light. His face was peaceful, his eyes dark and deep like still water. He felt the familiar calm of a survey mission. This was a standard task. A new species, calling itself humanity, had sent radio signals into the dark. They were loud, chaotic, and young. The hegemony's law was clear. Assess the planet for Class 10 chaotic potential. If the potential was too high, the world would be placed under quiet cutoff from the galaxy forever. Or, in the worst cases, gently erased. Begin the full spectrum scan, Eon said. His voice a soft hum in the quiet ship. Start from the outer gas giants and move inward. Look for signs of uncontrolled particle weapons, psychic resonance fields, or dimensional fractures. His two aides, lesser luminaries, moved their hands over glowing panels. Data began to flow. Images of Jupiter, a swirling giant. Saturn with its rings. All normal, all quiet. Eon allowed himself a small thread of optimism. Perhaps this world was merely noisy, not dangerous. They had found such species before. They could be guided, taught the galactic quiet, brought into the community of peaceful civilizations. The ship passed the orbit of Jupiter. The scan reached the asteroid belt. The first warning was so subtle, Eon almost dismissed it. A tiny fluctuation in the background energy of the solar system. A frequency so low, it was more a feeling than a sound. The ship's systems noted it as an anomaly, subspace harmonic, unknown source. Deepen the scan, Eon instructed, his call wavering by a degree. Focus on the third planet. The ship glided forward. As it crossed an invisible line just beyond Mars, the main viewer flickered. For a fraction of a second, the image of Earth shattered into 1,000 broken pieces, like a reflection in a dropped mirror. Then it returned to normal. A. Owen stood up. Report. Sensors are detecting a pervasive metaphysical field encompassing the planet and its moon. One aide said, its usually melodic voice now tight. It is not a technology, it is. Baked into the biosphere. Reading life signs. The field originates from the neural activity of the dominant species. That is not uncommon, Eon said, though a coldness was forming in his core. Many species have collective unconsciousness. Measure its intensity. Classify its nature. The aide was silent for a long moment. The ship was now passing Mars, and the strange feeling grew stronger. It was not a signal. It was a presence. A silent, watching hum that vibrated through the very metal of the ship. The intensity is off the scale. Luminary, the aide finally whispered. It exceeds all parameters. But it is not the intensity that is the problem. It is the signature. Explain. We have no record of this pattern in the entire hegemony archive. It is a null-type resonance, but alive. It is chaos given a pattern, order woven from madness. It reads as both a scream and a silence. The aide turned, its luminous eyes wide. And it is reactive. Our passive scan is being perceived. Eon felt a jolt of something he had not felt in millennia. Fear. A field that could perceive a luminary's passive scan? It was impossible. Full stop. Do not approach the planet's gravity well. Activate all defensive screens. Run a historical cross-check. Look for any myth, any legend, any fragment of data about a living lock or a planetary seal. The ship halted. On the viewer, Earth hung in the blackness, beautiful and terrible. The crew worked in frantic silence. The historical database, containing the summed knowledge of 1,000,000 ancient species, whirred through comparisons. Eon watched the planet. He saw the lights of its cities at night. He saw the storms over its oceans. A young, vibrant, violent world. And humming beneath it all, a power so old and so dark, it made the ancient luminaries feel like children. The aide's voice cracked. Luminary. A fragment. From the Dawn War era. The myth of the architects. Eon knew the name. Every species that had risen to the stars knew it. The architects were the ghosts of the early universe. Beings of such power, they shaped reality not with tools, but with thought. They were not evil. They were beyond such ideas. They were a force of nature, and a dangerous one. The stories said they were gone, sealed away by a sacrifice of the first civilizations. The record says, the aide continued, the final lock was not a machine or a spell. It was a sacrifice of potential. A seed of consciousness was planted in a mineral-rich world. It was designed to grow, to evolve into a guardian species. Its chaotic, creative, destructive nature was the very engine of the lock. To quiet it would be to break it. To disturb would be to risk. Waking what sleeps. Eon's eyes remained fixed on Earth, the blue planet, the prison, and the humans sleeping on its surface, dreaming their violent, beautiful, creative dreams. They were not the inhabitants. They were the bars on the cell door. The field is reacting to our presence, the second aide said, alarm rising. It is not an attack. It is an assessment, like an immune system sensing a foreign cell. Eon made a decision faster than light. Full retreat, now. Maximum sublight speed to the system's edge. Do not engage any drive, it pierces subspace. We must not cause a ripple. The silver ship turned, a silent predator becoming prey. It fled back the way it came, leaving the inner solar system behind. As they passed the asteroid belt again, the strange pressure lessened. But the feeling of being watched did not fade until they were past Jupiter Dot at the icy edge of the solar system. Where the sun was just a bright star, Eon gave his final order. Deploy the quarantine beacon. Set the message. Broadcast it on all galactic warning bands. Continuous loop. A small device, like a dark crystal, was launched from the ship. It anchored itself to a lonely piece of rock. It activated. A pulse of invisible energy shot out, a wall of quiet meant to dampen curiosity. And on a frequency every star-faring species would understand, it began to broadcast its grim. Simple message, evade, do not probe, do not contact. Eon took one last look at the distant speck of Earth. He felt no hatred for the humans, only a deep ancient dread. They were the keepers of a nightmare, and the galaxy must never, ever wake them up. On Earth, a man named Minnow was staring at a screen full of numbers. He was in a quiet office at the Korea Astronomy and Space Science Institute, the hum of computers his only company. He had been tracking a minor gravitational anomaly for weeks, a tiny wiggle in the data from a probe near Jupiter. His colleagues called it space dust. Instrument error. He was about to close the file when a new data stream came in. It was from an old radio telescope, one that listened to the quiet parts of space. The signal was not a sound. It was a pattern of interference, a perfect, repeating distortion. It was coming from the edge of the solar system, and according to his calculations, it had just started broadcasting less than 24 hours ago. He leaned closer, his tired eyes wide. It was a damping field, a sophisticated one. It was designed to suppress something. He ran a quick analysis, comparing the field's frequency to known cosmic phenomena. Nothing matched. Then, on a whim, he compared it to the theoretical quantum resonance of human brainwave patterns. The correlation was not perfect, but it was close. Uncomfortably close. Mino sat back in his chair, the quiet of the night pressing in on him. He looked out the window at the Soul City lights, at the thousands of people living their lives completely unaware. Someone or something had put a "Do Not Disturb" sign on their front door, and the sign was tuned specifically to the noise inside their own heads. He saved the data. He didn't know what it was, but he knew with a cold certainty that it was not natural, and it was not friendly. The conclave chamber was a sphere of pure, silent darkness, floating in a place between stars. In this darkness, points of light appeared. They were the minds of the celestial hegemony's oldest rulers, appearing as constellations of thought. There was no panic here. Panic was for younger species. But there was a profound, unsettled silence. Eon's report hung in the shared mental space, a crystal of disturbing data. The images of Earth, the scans, the reactive field, the flight, a new light, ancient and faint, shimmered into being. This was the chronicler. It was not a single being, but the collected memory stream of the first race to join the hegemony. Its voice was like dust falling in an empty hall. The luminary's sensor logs had been cross-referenced with the deep archive. The chronicler's thought voice murmured. The signature matches no known weapon, no energy, no life form. But it echoes a legend, a warning from the time of forging. The other points of light focused on the chronicler. Eon, present as a single steady glow, waited. He still felt the chill of the solar system's edge. Before the galactic quiet, the chronicler continued, there was galactic noise, and before the noise, there was the silence of the architects. A visualization bloomed in the darkness, shapes of impossible geometry, building and unbuilding stars with a thought. They were not monsters. They were like forces of physics made conscious, caring nothing for life, only for pattern and change. They were sealed away, not by war. They could not be fought. They were contained by a principle, a cage made of paradox. The image shifted. It showed a device of breathtaking complexity, and another, then a third. The first locks were mechanical, forged from collapsed stars. The architects broke them. The next locks were living, woven from cosmic energy beings. The architects unwove them. The final lock was different. It was a lock that pretended it was not a lock. Now the image showed a single rocky planet, young and molten. It was a prison of stasis. To hold a dynamic, creative force, you need a dynamic, creative cage. The last civilizations took a seed of primal consciousness, not a mind, but the potential for one. They imprinted it with a single, terrible purpose, to generate constant, chaotic psychic noise, a song of madness and creation. This noise would act as a null field, a blanket that would keep the architects in eternal sleep. The planet in the image began to cool. Oceans formed. Life, simple and then complex, crawled across its surface. The seed was planted here. It was designed to grow, to evolve. Its evolution was the security system. Every war, every prayer, every painting, every act of love and hatred, all of it fuels the barrier. The chaos is not a flaw. It is the function. The chronicler's light dimmed slightly. The planet is Earth. The dominant species is not the inhabitant. It is the mechanism. They are the living, breathing teeth of the lock. A profound horror settled over the conclave. A quarantine was one thing. This was something else entirely. If they are the lock, Eon's thought form pulsed, then contact is the key. Uplifting them, calming them, imposing the galactic quiet upon them, would be like turning off the alarm on a vault, finished another elder. The prison remains, but the warning system is silent. We would never know if the seal was failing until it was too late. And worse, the chronicler whispered, if the mechanism were to become aware of its own purpose, to focus its collective will, it could theoretically choose to stop, or to open the door. The decision was swift and unanimous. The beacon's message would stand. The solar system would be marked as a forbidden zone. No contact. No exploration. No exceptions. They would watch from a distance forever, hoping the guards never woke up. Asterisk, 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 in a cluttered office in Daejeon, Minho had not slept. Empty coffee cups covered his desk. On his main screen was the gravitational lensing data from the edge of the solar system. On a second screen was the maddening correlation with human neural frequencies. He needed more data. And he needed people who wouldn't laugh at him. He sent 2 emails. The first was to Suji. She wasn't an astronomer. She was a network security analyst. She saw patterns in chaos better than anyone he knew. Her office was across the city, but her mind was in the digital clouds. The second was to Taeyeon. Taeyeon operated a deep space radar array used for tracking asteroids. He was a man of few words and many facts. If something was out there, Taeyeon's equipment could find its shadow. They met in Minho's office that evening. Suji was small, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Taeyeon was broad and quiet, his arms crossed as he looked at the screens. I think someone has put a blanket over our house, Minho said, skipping hello. He showed them the data. Suji leaned in immediately, her fingers flying over her own tablet to pull in fresh datasets. This damping field? It's incredibly precise. It's not just blocking a frequency. It's absorbing it and canceling it out, like active noise-canceling headphones for a planet. She ran a quick analysis. The target frequency band is unusual. It overlaps with the theoretical quantum resonance of consciousness. The brainwave of a planet, if it had one. Taeyeon grunted. He entered commands into his secure laptop, accessing his array's logs. My system picks up micro-reflections. Space is not empty. Dust particles. Something big passed through the outer system recently. Very smooth. Very cold. No ion trail. It's how a ship would look if it didn't want to be seen. He pulled up a trajectory plot. It showed a gentle arc coming in from beyond Neptune, swinging past Jupiter, and then a sudden, sharp retreat back the way it came, stopping at the location of Minho's anomaly. That's not a natural object. That's a course change. A decision. The 3 of them were silent for a moment. The pieces were too strange to fit any normal picture. Okay, Suji said, breaking the silence. Assume it's aliens. Advanced ones. They come in, they get close, they freak out, they run away, and they put up a keep out sign tuned to the noise in our heads. Why? Maybe we're loud, Taeyeon said, his voice a low rumble. And they don't like noise. Or, Minho said, thinking of the reactive, living feel of the field in the data, maybe the noise is the point. Maybe we're not just making noise. Maybe we're broadcasting a signal. A warning. A warning for what? Suji asked. Minho didn't have an answer. He only had a deep growing dread that matched the cold fear in Eon's heart, light years away. We need to listen better. Not with radios for messages. We need to look for what they were looking at when they ran. We need to look at U.S. Suji's eyes lit up with a hacker's curiosity. I can tap into the global network of medical and research databases. Anonymous aggregated brainwave studies, emotional sentiment analysis from social media feeds, even global conflict monitoring. If there's a signal, it'll be in the sum of human activity. Taeyeon nodded. I will recalibrate the array, not to look outward, but to look at the space around Earth, to see if this field reacts to things. To us, as they worked, a new picture began to form. It wasn't proof. It was a ghost of an idea. Suji's data showed a constant, low-level psychic hum from Earth, a chaos of information that always balanced itself. Joy spiked somewhere. Despair spiked elsewhere. Creativity and destruction flared in a never-ending dance. It was stable in its instability. And Taeyun, checking old logs, found something odd. During a period of intense global meditation for peace years ago, his array had picked up a tiny, corresponding fluctuation in the solar magnetic field. And during the outbreak of a short, intense war, another fluctuation, different in nature. It was as if the planet's magnetic field was a speaker, and human emotion was the sound. Minho stared at the merged data on his screen. A living field. A reactive prison. Guards who didn't know they were guards. He thought of the silent, watching ship. He thought of the run. They weren't afraid of humanity. They were afraid of what humanity was sitting on top of. What humanity was made from. They're not isolating us to protect themselves from us, he said quietly, the truth settling like a stone in his stomach. They're isolating us to protect everything from what we're keeping in. Outside the window, the city of Seoul pulsed with light and life, with traffic and music and arguments and dreams. It all felt different now. Not just a city. Not just a life. It felt like a vital, unconscious duty. A secret so dark it made the stars turn away. The universe was full of listeners. Not all of them obeyed the rules. The Kolith were scavengers, survivors. Their society was built on a simple principle. Find what others fear or ignore, and take it. The hegemony's quarantine beacon was not a warning to them. It was a flashing sign that read, "Treasure within." Their ship was a jagged piece of rock and metal, grown more than built, designed to look like an asteroid to casual scanners. It drifted slowly, silently, into the solar system, following the path Eon's ship had taken weeks before. On board, the Kolith commander, a being of sharp angles and shifting gray flesh, watched the hegemony's warning scroll across a screen. It hissed, a sound like grinding stones. "They fear this place," it said to its crew. "Fear means power. The luminaries fear a power they cannot control. We will find it. We will take its measure. And if we can, we will take the power for ourselves." They knew better than to go directly to the blue planet. That was where the hegemony's sensors would be focused. Instead, they slid into orbit around Earth's moon, hiding in the permanent shadow of a deep crater on the far side. Their goal was not contact. It was theft. They deployed their probe, a spider-like machine of black needles. Its purpose was to perform a phase tap, a technology that could siphon exotic energies directly from their source. Like drawing water from a hidden well, the probe's needles hummed, vibrating at a frequency designed to resonate with the mysterious field the hegemony had detected. It began its work, a silent, invasive drain. The effect was not on the moon. It was on Earth, 384,000 kilometers away, not in Seoul. It started just after midnight. Minho was asleep at his desk, his head on a pile of printouts. He jerked awake. The air in the room felt thick, electric. The numbers on his screen swam and blurred. He heard a scream from another office, cut short. He stumbled to the window. The city below was flickering. Not the lights, the buildings themselves. For a fraction of a second, the sleek apartment tower across the street seemed to be made of wet black stone. The road below rippled like water. He saw people in the street stopping, clutching their heads. A car swerved and hit a lamppost. He felt a sudden, blinding headache, and behind his eyes he saw other eyes. He saw a busy kitchen that was not his, felt the heat of a stove. He saw a dark park path, felt a jolt of fear that wasn't his own. A wave of raw, Unfocused anger washed over him and was gone. It lasted for 7 seconds. Then it stopped. The city was just a city again. The wail of the car alarm from the crash filled the sudden, normal silence. His phone began to buzz incessantly news alerts. Mass hysteria event? One headline read, Global reports of shared hallucinations. Minho's blood ran cold. This was it. The reaction. He called Suji. Her voice was shaky. It was everywhere, Minho. Not just here. Tokyo, New York, Mumbai. All at the same time. It was like someone poked the hive. On the moon, the Kolith probe's readings spiked wildly. It was successfully drawing energy. The commander watched the power levels rise on the main viewer, a triumphant gurgle in its throat. The energy was strange, chaotic, laced with fragmented images and emotions, the psychic spillover from the tap. It didn't matter. Power was power. Then, the readings didn't just stop. They reversed. The chaotic energy flow slammed back into the probe, not as stolen power, but as a directed command. A law of physics written by an older, crueler universe. The black-needled machine didn't explode. It didn't melt. It simply came apart. Its atoms, the bonds that held them together, decided they had never been introduced. In a silent, clean flash, the probe ceased to exist. Not even dust remained. The Kolith commander stared at the empty space on its screen where the probe's signal had been. Then, every alarm on the ship blared. The same nullifying wave was racing back up the energy tether, a ghostly echo following the path home. Sever the link. Jettison the tap array. The commander shrieked. It was too late. The wave touched their ship. The outer hull, made of reinforced asteroid iron, didn't corrode. It vanished. A perfect sphere of the ship simply stopped being. For a moment, the crew could see the stars through the giant, smooth hole in their home. Then the atmosphere blasted out into the vacuum, carrying with it the shrieking, flailing Kolith. Their ship, dead and silent, began a slow, cold tumble into the moon's darkness. Asterisk, 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 in the silent expanse near Jupiter, Eon's ship hung like a watching eye. The sensors tuned to the quarantine zone screamed a silent alarm. Eon watched the data unfold, the Kolith signature entering the system, their foolish probe activating, the massive reactive psychic spike from Earth, and then the perfect surgical nullification. Eon felt no satisfaction, only a colder dread. The lock had not just defended itself. It had traced the attack to its source and delivered a final, absolute punishment. This was not an animal biting. This was a system operating with ruthless, intelligent precision. A new command pulsed from the conclave, urgent and uncompromising. The breach could not be allowed to stand. The Kolith were a known variable. Their scavenged technology and any biological traces were contaminants. But more dangerous was the potential for information leakage. The humans who had perceived the event, whose neural patterns had been directly agitated by the phase tap, were now a risk. They had felt the lock's mechanism move. That feeling could become curiosity. Curiosity could become investigation. The order was for a minimal cleansing. A small surgical strike. The Kolith wreckage on the moon was to be vaporized from orbit. And on Earth, the neural activity patterns that had spiked in precise correlation with the event the team that Eon's own logs identified as monitoring. The damping field were to be located and pacified permanently. Eon's serene face showed no conflict, but inside, a war raged. He was a luminary. He preserved order. This was the ultimate order-protecting reality from the prison break. Yet the humans were not guilty. They were components. Erasing them felt like breaking a circuit to stop a fire alarm. It was a solution, but it betrayed the very principle of preservation. Duty 1. He selected a skiff, a small, agile craft designed for precise planetary work. A team of 4 luminaries, their minds calm and purpose clear, boarded it. The skiff detached from the main ship and shot towards Earth, a sliver of silver falling towards the blue marble. Asterisk, 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 Minho, Suji, and Taiyun were not at the Institute anymore. They were in a small, secure data vault owned by Suji's old company, a room lined with humming servers. They had linked Taiyun's array, Suji's global data taps, and Minho's models into one desperate system. The pulse came from the moon, Taiyun said, his fingers flying over a keyboard. Something there tried to tap into. U.S. Into the field. And the field slapped it down, Suji finished, pulling news reports from around the world. But it also let everyone feel the slap. We all got a little taste of the connection. That can't be good. It means the secret is getting harder to keep, Minho said. He was monitoring a new signal. A tiny, incredibly fast object on an entry trajectory. Not a meteor. Its deceleration was too smooth. And I think the cleaners are here. He showed them the track. The object was coming down over the Korean peninsula. It was going to be in Seoul in minutes. There was no time to run to authorities. No one would believe them. They had only their wits and their strange, partial knowledge. The skiff will emit a neural pacification wave, Minho said. Thinking aloud, remembering the hegemony's standard protocols from old, theoretical papers on first contact. It makes people calm, sleepy, compliant. They'll walk us out, and no one will notice. We need to shield ourselves. The damping field from the edge of the system. Its frequency is an anti-pattern to our neural resonance. If we can generate a local version, even a weak one, it might protect us. Suji was already on it. I can program a broadcast from these servers. Use the building's emergency alert speakers. It'll be crude, but it might scramble their pacification signal. She started typing furiously. Taeyong looked at the tracking data. They will land on the roof for a quick extraction. Or, he looked at the building schematics. The main server room. It's shielded. It's a trap, but it's the only room that might block their sensors long enough for us to do something. A low hum vibrated through the building, a sound felt in the teeth more than heard. The lights flickered. Outside the vault's small window, they saw a soft silver light descending. The chase had begun. They were 3 humans who knew a fraction of a terrible truth, and the galaxy's janitors had come to silence them. They grabbed their laptops and hard drives and ran, not towards escape, but deeper into the building, towards the heart of the server room. The only weapon they had was the truth, and they didn't even fully understand it yet. The low hum was everywhere. It seeped through the walls of the data vault, a sound that made the air feel heavy and thoughts move slow. Minho's head felt like it was packed with wool. He saw Suji blink slowly, her fingers pausing on her keyboard. Taeyan shook his head like a bull trying to clear water from its ears. "It's the wave," Minho said, forcing the words out. "They're calming us down. We have to move, now." They stumbled out of the vault into the dim hallway of the server building. The emergency lights were on, casting long shadows. From outside, they heard no screams, no alarms. Just an eerie, peaceful silence. The pacification field was working on the entire neighborhood, putting people into a gentle, waking sleep. Suji leaned against a wall, her tablet in hand. Her movements were sluggish. The broadcast. I set it to loop. She tapped a command. A moment later, a harsh, staticky buzz erupted from the ceiling speakers. It was an ugly, grating noise, but as it washed over them, the fog in Minho's mind lessened slightly. It was like 2 opposite songs canceling each other out. Their crude shield was working, but it wouldn't last. They will come for the source of the interference, Taeyun said, his voice a low rumble cutting through the static. The server room. It is the logical place. Then that's where we go, Minho said. It felt like walking into a trap, but they had no other cards to play. They moved down the concrete corridors, the static from the speakers their only shield. Through a window in a stairwell door, Minho saw the silver skiff. It was resting silently in the empty parking lot, beautiful and alien. A ramp was down, and 4 tall, gray-robed figures were gliding towards the building entrance. They moved with a terrible, peaceful purpose. The trio reached the main server room. It was a cold, loud space filled with the endless blink of green and red lights and the roar of cooling fans. Taeyun sealed the heavy, shielded door behind them. It wouldn't stop the luminaries for long, but it might buy them seconds. Suji immediately jacked her tablet into a primary terminal. If I can get into their skiff systems, even just an open telemetry feed, we might learn something. See what they see. Hurry, Taeyun said, placing his back against the door, as if he could hold it by will alone. Minho stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the hum of human data. He felt a desperate idea forming. The luminaries were ancient. They operated on logic, on the preservation of order. They saw humanity as a dangerous component. What if he could show them they were wrong? Not with a weapon, but with the truth. The full, terrible truth they themselves were still guessing at. Suji, when you get in, don't look for controls. Look for data. Look for their history. Their records on Earth. Look for the words architect or prison or lock. Download everything you can. Suji nodded, her eyes glued to her screen. Lines of alien code, elegant and complex, scrolled past. Their systems are beautiful and old. I'm in a low-level diagnostic stream. There's a data cache. It's tagged with a symbol that matches the energy signature from your first anomaly, Minho. Open it. Pipe it to the main screen here. On the large wall monitor used for network diagnostics, images began to flicker. It was like watching a broken ancient movie. They saw stars being shaped. They saw the impossible geometries of the architects, not as monsters, but as indifferent artists remaking reality. They saw wars against them and failures. Then they saw the plan. The visualization of the lock, a diagram of a planet with a swirling, chaotic core labeled Sentient Chaotic Potential. Arrows pointed from the core to a terrifying, empty void labeled Architect Containment. The label on the planet was clear. It was Earth. The heavy door to the server room let out a soft hiss. A circle in its center began to glow orange and white. It was being cut open with something silent and unbearably hot. They're here, Taeyun said, stepping away from the door. The circle of metal fell inward with a clang. In the doorway stood 2 luminaries. Their robes were gray, their faces serene and empty. They held slender rods that glowed with a soft blue light. One raised its rod towards Taeyun. A shimmering pulse of energy shot out, not to burn, but to pacify, to shut down his mind gently and forever. Taeyun dove behind a server rack. The pulse hit the metal, which glowed blue for a second, and then went dark, all its circuits fried. Minho didn't move. He stood in front of the large screen, which now showed the final, clear schematic. Humanity, its chaotic collective mind, was the engine. The prison was real, and they were the wardens. We understand. Minho shouted, his voice raw against the fan noise. We know about the prison. The luminary in the doorway paused. Its dark eyes flickered from Minho to the screen behind him. It saw the stolen data. A ripple, the smallest break in its serene expression, passed over its face. It was surprise. Then The ripple smoothed away. The conclave's orders were clear. Knowing the secret made them an even greater contaminant. The luminary raised its rod again, aiming directly at Minho's forehead. This was it. Minho's mind raced. Fighting was useless. Pleading was useless. He had only one thing left, the key itself. He spun towards Suji's terminal. A cable from her tablet was connected to a satellite uplink port, a leftover from old tests. He didn't grab a weapon. He grabbed the cable and jammed it into a side port on his own laptop. On his screen was his model, the one that matched the damping field to human neural resonance. He had a live feed of his own simplified brainwave monitor, a device he used for focus experiments. With a final desperate prayer, he set the satellite uplink to transmit. But he wasn't sending a message. He was sending a signal. He was broadcasting the raw, unfiltered, chaotic quantum resonance of his own conscious mind. The precise frequency the beacon was built to dampen directly at the luminary, amplifying it through the building's powerful uplink. The luminary fired. A beam of soothing blue light shot across the room. At the same instant, Minho hit the transmit key. The beam struck him. He felt a wave of incredible peace, a desire to just close his eyes and sleep forever. But beneath it, his own signal, a screech of human fear. Curiosity, love, anger, and desperate hope pulsed out. The luminary didn't stagger. It froze. The blue light from its rod winked out. Its head tilted. Its dark eyes, usually like still pools, began to swirl with impossible colors. Flashes of imagery, not from Minho's mind, but from the deeper truth, the signal unlocked within the luminary's own ancient consciousness. It saw the grand, terrible truth not as data, but as experience. It felt, for a nanosecond, the weight of being a warden. It felt the chaotic, beautiful, terrifying hum of 7 billion living locks. The other luminary watched, its serenity finally broken into confusion. The first luminary slowly lowered its rod. It did not look hurt. It looked transformed, awakened to a horrible understanding. A voice, not from the luminary in the room, but from a speaker on Suji's tablet, filled the air. It was Eon's voice, translated and heavy with a shock so deep it cracked its usual calm. Cease all actions. The voice commanded the luminary team. Do not touch the humans. Do not touch any of them. On the tablet screen, they could see Eon aboard his ship. His face was a mask of revelation and dread. He had monitored the skiff's telemetry. He had seen the stolen data flash on the human screen, and he had felt the echo of Minho's transmitted resonance through the skiff's own sensors. He understood now. The conclave was wrong. You could not clean a component without breaking the machine. And more importantly, the humans were not just components. A component does not choose to broadcast its essence as a plea. A component does not seek understanding. These humans had looked into the abyss they guarded and had not gone mad. They had tried to understand. The cleansing order is revoked, Eon said, his words final. Retrieve the team and return to the ship. Do not interact further. The risk is incalculable. The two luminaries in the server room looked at Minho, at the data on the screen, and then at each other. Without a word, they turned and glided back through the ruined door, leaving the three humans alone in the sudden, ringing silence, surrounded by the humming servers and the weight of a galaxy-changing truth. The silence in the server room was louder than the fans. Minho slowly lowered his hands from the keyboard. The blue light from the luminary's weapon had left a strange cold tingle on his skin, but his mind was his own. Suji was frozen at her terminal, her knuckles white. Taeyeon slowly stood up from behind the server rack, his eyes fixed on the perfectly cut hole in the door. They waited, listening. No more sounds of the silver skiff's hum. No footsteps. After 5 long minutes, Taeyeon risked a look out into the hallway. It was empty. He walked to a window that faced the parking lot. The skiff was gone. Only the circular burn marks on the asphalt showed it had ever been there. On Suji's tablet, the telemetry feed from the alien ship had gone dead. The last image was of Eon, his serene face etched with something new, a profound, weary understanding. Then static. What did you do? Suji whispered, turning to Minho. I showed them what we are, Minho said, his voice hoarse. He pointed at the large screen, still displaying the stolen schematic of Earth as a prison lock. And I think I showed them we know what we are. We're not just a broken machine. We're the operators who just realized we're in the control room. For days, nothing happened. The world moved on. The global hysteria event was explained away by scientists as a rare atmospheric phenomenon affecting brain chemistry. Life returned to normal. But for Minho, Suji, and Tae-yun, normal was gone. They met in a small, secure apartment Suji had arranged, surrounded by their laptops and data drives. They were waiting. The signal came not to governments, but to them. It arrived on a frequency so obscure, only Tae-yun's recalibrated array could hear it, piggybacking on a burst of solar radiation. It was a request for a secure, narrow-beam communication. Coordinates were given for a patch of empty desert in Mongolia. They went, not knowing what to expect. They stood in the vast, cold emptiness as the sun set. A shimmer appeared in the air, like heat haze, and solidified into the life-sized hologram of Aeon. He looked at them, and his gaze was no longer that of a distant god looking at an insect. It was the look of one soldier to another, standing on opposite sides of the same terrible wall. You have seen the records. Eon began, his translated voice calm but heavy. You understand the function of your existence. We're a lock, Minho said, the words feeling strange in the dry desert air. Our minds, our chaos, is what keeps something terrible asleep. Eon gave a slow nod, a very human gesture he must have learned from watching them. The architects are not evil. They are a force of change so absolute it would unmake all stable life. Your species' unique psychic signature, your capacity for boundless creation and horrific destruction, your emotional volatility generates a null field. It is the perfect cage for such beings. To calm you, to unify you under a single peaceful purpose, would be to silence the alarm. You must remain as you are, wild, unpredictable, divided, and brilliant. Yuna, the diplomat Suji had secretly contacted, stepped forward. She had been briefed, her face pale but determined. So your solution is to leave us in ignorance? As animals in a zoo? Ignorance was the first shield, Eon replied. But that shield is cracked. You know. So now, a new policy is enacted. Guarded isolation. The celestial hegemony will not contact you. We will not uplift you. But we will also ensure no other species disturbs you. We will become the silent guardians of your guardians. We will keep the scavengers, like the Kolith, and the curious away. Your solar system will be marked, not just as forbidden, but as protected. The galaxy will learn to fear this place not for what you are, but for what you keep contained. He looked at each of them. This is the burden. You cannot join the community of stars. Your destiny is here. To live, to fight, to create, to love, to hate. To be gloriously, dangerously human. It is the most important task in the cosmos, and you can never stop doing it. The hologram began to fade. The quarantine beacon's message has been changed. It will warn others away, but with a new respect. You are not a plague. You are the warden of a plague. Goodbye, humans. Do not seek us out. And never, ever stop being what you are. Eon vanished. The four humans were left alone under the emerging stars. The silence was enormous. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the silence of a prison block, and they were the guards on the eternal night shift. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Weeks later, Minho stood on the roof of the Institute. The night was clear. Sol's electric heartbeat pulsed below him. He looked up at the Milky Way. A river of diamonds spilled across the black. He knew the truth now. Every star up there that could hold life was looking back at Earth with caution, not curiosity. They weren't wondering if humans were intelligent. They were wondering if the guards were still vigilant. The cosmic do not disturb sign was permanent. Suji and Taeyeon joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. Yuna was downstairs, working on a confidential, non-disclosable report for a handful of world leaders. The truth would be kept in a very small, very dark box. To tell humanity would risk everything. What if people, knowing they were a lock, tried to be too peaceful? What if they tried to silence the chaotic engine of their own souls? It could be the end of everything. It's a lonely feeling, Suji said, following his gaze to the stars. Knowing they're all out there, and we can never meet them. It's not lonely, Taeyeon grunted, sipping his coffee. It's a duty. A big one. We watch. We stay alive. We stay. You, Minho nodded. That was it. The darker secret wasn't a weapon buried in the ground. It was the purpose buried in their DNA, in every thought, every dream, every argument. They were born to be messy, emotional, brilliant, and flawed. Their art and their wars were not just their history. They were the gears of a cosmic prison turning. He thought of all the people down in the city, living their lives. The couple having their first fight. The artist struggling with a blank canvas. The scientist on the verge of a discovery. The child having a nightmare. All of it, every second of joy and pain, was fuel. It was all necessary. He turned his back on the stars. They were not for him. Not for any human. Their sky was a ceiling, and their world was the most important room in the universe. Then we watch, Minho said, echoing Taeyeon's words. He looked at his friends, at the city, at the painful, beautiful, chaotic life buzzing below. And we stay human. On the edge of the solar system, the dark crystal of the quarantine beacon hummed. Its old message was erased. Now it pulsed a new warning into the endless dark, a message every passing ship would hear and obey without question. Two simple words, carrying the weight of eons.